Okay. Okay, so that's the first slide where you see something about me. There are two figures, and there is the word share. The figure on the bottom, I think everybody would understand what this means. That's my age. And then the two figures on the left side, it's I have 3 children and 1 granddaughter. And the word share is something that I have, let's say, as one of my main messages for my whole life, that I always try to share knowledge, and I try to share things that I own. And that has not only started recently, that has been, let's say, something I've done for the last 35 years or something. Weiter? In the let's say, business life that I've been working in, you can see that I worked for different companies. First of all, the big T, that means Deutsche Telekom, and the consulting arm of Deutsche Telekom. When I then stopped it at the age of 60 working for Deutsche Telekom Group, I founded my own company, Busalgo. And since, let's say, two years later, means in 20, when was that, 12 or no, 13, I started working for Professional Start, for Fit für den Beruf, and recently also for Madiba Academy. And that's a company that is trying to bring knowledge that is available from different people virtually to all over the world. And that company has started recently, and I'm there in the, let's say, in the management board of this company, and we'll soon come on the market with some proposals. Weiter? What are you going to learn here today in my presentation? First of all, I talk about some ideas and the principles of the plan TTO. I'm not sure how much you know about that, so I wanted to summarize some of these ideas. Then I talk briefly about the industry product development process. Let's say, how does the product development process work in the industry? Then we talk about marketing of ideas, and about how does a university idea come to a business proposal, and how do I get from an idea to a product. Then we talk about sales and marketing strategies, and some examples for new ideas will be the final slide that we talk, or the final slides that we talk about. And as my colleagues are going to look at the chat, if there is any question, put it in the chat, and then they will let me know, I hope, and then we can go on like this. Okay, the Technology Transfer Office, weiter. The idea of such a TTO is that ideas for a product will be, let's say, collected in the universities, weiter. And to bring it to a customer, you need, of course, to know what customers want. I mean, Horst mentioned that you have to put yourself with the idea also at the position of a customer. And the customer can be either the industry or the final user of such a product, weiter. So then, based on that, you have to develop a business model and a business case. But first, a model. We talked about that in Horst's presentation, and he will put in a checklist of how such a business model should look like. And before you go into more details, you need to develop, of course, also a business case. As I mentioned before, that you have to develop a real full Excel sheet with all the figures that are needed for the new company that you need to found. Weiter. In certain situations, you need to find a partner to develop the product. And when you think about that, you have the new product in the middle, and you think about, how do I create such an idea? How do these different ideas in the university, how will they be screened? And how will they be, let's say, put into a certain list where you can say, this is the most important idea, the probability of success is the highest here with this idea. So the screening process, drück mal auf weiter. We will mainly focus here on this idea creation, the idea screening, and the commercialization of such ideas. We don't talk so much when we think about the development process in the industry, where you also have concept testing and the business analysis and the beta testing. That is something that would happen after you have a real idea and after you have a partner that you work together with. That is something that you cannot do alone in the university. You need to form, let's say, some kind of a team with somebody else. Okay, now when we look at this slide here with the different questions, some of those questions may be those that you have also asked yourself already. Should I become an entrepreneur? Which idea could I commercialize? Who will support me? How can I create a company? Where could I test my capabilities and learn the necessary business skills? Weiter, ja genau. And what questions do you have? When you think about your questions, I thought initially that we do it here in the chat, but I guess the time is too short for doing that. But what you can do, you can put your questions down and send them to me later, because you will find in the presentation my email address, and you might have ideas while you are developing your model, your ideas. Send the questions to me and I'll try to answer them, because in this presentation here today, it may be too short to answer them individually. But don't worry, just send them to me and then it will also be possible. Okay, now the next slide again is also additional ideas. And one of the questions is, for example, if you have an idea, how do you know about ideas of others? And what happens to these ideas? And again, the question, who can support me? How can I form a team, maybe with other students, with a professor together, or with external parties? And how would I know if and how my idea can be commercialized? That is maybe something that we try to discuss here a little later with some more details. And the main question is, what does the industry look for? You might have an idea, but where do you find an industry partner or an industry company or a participant in the industry who can use this idea, and for whom would this idea be helpful? Again, if you have questions, send them to me, as I mentioned before, and we'll answer them. Weiter? Now, talking about marketing of ideas, I don't know what subjects you guys are studying. If you are, of course, in a business study, then what I'm saying now about marketing definition is, let's say, available to you, and you have heard that, and you have probably not heard it only once. But if you are only in technology studies, then maybe the 4 P's of marketing, weiter, the 4 P's of marketing are not so, let's say, familiar to you. First of all, it's the identification, the selection, and the development of a product. This is what you should do with your idea. You have to define, to select, and develop the idea for a product. The second is the selection of a distribution channel. Horst mentioned that. Remember the bakery, they had a good idea for products, they had perfect products, but they haven't thought before about the distribution channel. And that means, how would they reach the customer? And as they didn't have enough shops to sell their stuff, they had a problem in, let's say, getting their products to all the customers. And that's why they failed with their idea. The third P is the development and implementation of a promotional strategy. That means, how do I come to a customer? Please, customer, buy from me is not enough. You have to think about nowadays, what kind of, let's say, technology do I use to make promotions? It used to be enough some 20, 30, 40 years ago to have an advert in a newspaper or on the radio or on television. But nowadays you use electronic media, and you have to do it with the right strategy, so you reach the right customers, where it is important also, who are my customers, and that determines also the strategy that you have to do. And finally, of course, it's the determination of the price that you will finally get for your product. And we talk about the pricing strategy later as well. Okay, so next slide. When you think about ideas in a bachelor or master or doctoral thesis, have you ever thought before, I don't know in what stage of your studies you are, I hope somewhere at the end of your studies, and you have been thinking maybe about a thesis that you write, be that bachelor, master, or doctor, that doesn't matter. But if you think about your thesis and you think about the market side of your thesis, then maybe you come to a different idea, as if you just, let's say, do a thesis about a certain topic where you collect information and summarize it in a study. that may be a possibility, but a study is probably something that cannot easily be sold on the market or cannot easily be used on the market. Weiter. And if you think about how such a thesis can be commercialized, I give you an example of one of my clients that I used to have I started with this client some 10 years ago. This client was already an entrepreneur while he studied IT. During his studies, he had the idea of developing a secure software for gaming over the internet. And that is what he started already during his studies. And soon after his study, after finishing his studies, he founded a small enterprise that developed gaming software for an internet gaming company. So he was the technology partner of a gaming company that sold this possibility over their network that they had already. They had initially only shops where people could gamble, but then they started this business over the internet, which I think in between is much bigger than the market for the shops where you can gamble. So people are more using the idea of playing over the internet. Now, the final sentence on this business here, on this slide here, you have to think in business terms. And when talking about business terms and coming back to this client that I talked about, when I met him first, he was already doing pretty well with his business. But I asked him the question, what are you going to do if your individual, your only client that you have, will tomorrow close down his business or he will select another partner? And he said, the CEO said, why would he do that? We are doing well, all is working well, and why would he close his business? But I said, what do you do if? And that is how we came to the idea he needs more than one client. With one client, he's very, let's say, vulnerable. He can be, let's say, his business can be destroyed rather quickly. And that's why we then started developing a new product line and a new customer base. And today, this company is a listed company in the German market that develops software solutions for different industries and for different clients in Germany and in some other European countries. Now, the next slide, where you say the solution, think in business terms, you have a problem, you have to analyze this problem, and you have to come to a solution and think of the ideas that Horst presented to you when talking about the business model. Now, how do I get to an idea for your thesis? As I mentioned, think in business terms. Think of, let's say, an application that you could develop that people can use. Think of something that you would like to use. If you come to an idea, think of or discuss it with others. Talk to other people and ask them, what would you think about this solution? Who would buy this product? What value does it have to the client? How can my product be smarter than some existing product on the market? During the break, we had one student already who was thinking of using, or let's say, improving the gas cylinders that are being used for cooking in Jordan. And if you produce something or if you develop something that improves the possibilities there, it may rather be possible to come into the market with such a new solution. And the question is, better ask these questions regarding the market side before you define a thesis. So before you talk to a professor about your bachelor or master thesis, think about the market. And if you go to the next slide, think of the 4 Ps. And that means your idea on the next slide, your idea is the product, and you need to think about the promotion and the price and the place where to sell it and how to sell it before you think about writing a thesis. Okay, now the first question, which problem does the idea of my business model solve? Does it solve a problem at all, or is it just, as I said, a collection of information in the market and you write down plenty of figures? When I, for example, think of my thesis that I wrote, I collected lots of information. I was for 3 months, I was busy only collecting information, and I wrote a paper of, let's say, I think it was 80 pages, full of information and full of slides and full of graphs and full of summaries, but that couldn't be sold. It was just a collection of ideas, and that was all. But if you think of which industry market needs your idea, your solution, then think of the idea, is it only represented in Germany, or can it be launched somewhere else? And if it's available in Jordan, if some industry partner is available in Jordan, how can you get in touch with this person? And which customers does this industry segment have? That means who is the customer that profits from this solution? So it's not only the industry partner, it's the clients, the customers of this industry partner that would be looking for such a solution and would be willing to pay for such a solution. And then, of course, finally, think of, are there competitors to this solution, and what do these competitors offer? If there are, let's say, plenty of competitors with the same solution, then it's probably better to think of something else, because you as a young entrepreneur may not be able to beat such a, let's say, a market. We had the question before, what do I do in a saturated market? That may be difficult for you in the beginning to let's say, compete with such partners. Now, can you develop your product alone, or can you do it only in the university? Do you need a partner? Or the alternative could be, if you have developed a product, would you have it registered as a patent? And can you sell this patent to somebody? Horst had this idea of the people in Berlin that developed a product that was later sold to Alibaba. But one could even think of having a patent that describes how such a solution will be, let's say, developed, and how such a solution should work. And then you have the registration of the patent only, or you develop it yourselves together with a partner. And if you do that, the question is, if you need a partner, weiter, how to find such a partner? What kind of partner do I need? Do I need a partner for technology? Do I need a partner for organization? Do I need a partner with capital, or helping me with sales? So then find out who works in this business sector, and how do I contact this business sector? What do I do to contact these people? Can I call them? Can I send them a mail? Can I visit them? So you have to really prepare all that in a proper way. If you don't know anybody in such a business sector, think of somebody who might know somebody in this business sector. And then don't forget, you need capital when you want to let's say, form a new company. And don't forget that more than 80% of business fail because of cash flow issues. That means because of missing capital. And when I talk to clients here in Germany or in Europe that are willing to found a new company, I always tell them, you need so much capital that you can survive the first 2 years. Because if you can't survive the first 2 years, and you have, for example, such a crisis like we have this year with Corona, then most of the new startups that don't have enough capital are already dead, and they cannot continue because of the situation that we are presently in. And you never know what crisis and what problems we will get next year. And you never know what problems can arise that you haven't thought of before you started your company. Okay, next slide. This is the cycle, how you can combine design thinking, lean startup, and agile working. This graph is maybe a bit too small for you to look at, but when you look at the printout later, then you understand what is meant here behind this graph, that you always have to consider how you come from design thinking to agile working in a modern company. Okay, now we talk about the sales and marketing strategy. Next. When you think of what kind of function do sales have in your organization, you need to consider that you have professionals who do the selling. If you think, and that is what I mentioned before, some people who have an idea for a new business or for a new product, they always believe that sells like hell, that is no problem, that will be done easily, and that can be done very quickly. Now think about, let's say, the same product that is going to be sold to different people. Think of let's say, a Porsche 911 that is being sold either to Frank or to me. That means people of a certain age above 60, or to a young man who just recently made his driver license. And if the salesperson wants to sell, he needs to sell this with totally different words and with totally different arguments to people like me and Frank or Horst, or to people like you students who are much younger and have totally different ideas of such a sports car. And that's why you need, let's say, to think about what arguments the salespeople use when they sell a product. And when you think about it, younger people would more be looking for speed and for, let's say, horsepower and for, let's say, being faster than others, while people in my age look for safety, for quality, for brakes, for minimum use of resources and things like that. And the same product will be sold with different arguments and with different ideas and different things behind it. Now think about how the sales department works with other departments. In many companies, when the, let's say, the sales is not working well, sales will often be blamed for the bad figures that a company has. But it's important that sales works together with, let's say, production, with innovation, with development of products, and with marketing. And if you don't do that, then there will always, the blame will be on the salespeople, and it doesn't help the company really much if you don't cooperate properly with the others. And when you have a sales team in the beginning, the sales team may be you. Maybe you are the only person who can sell. And then you have to also take over the sales role, and you have to determine goals and strategies, how to sell the products in the first couple of months and in the first year maybe, before you can hire somebody who takes over the sales role. And don't forget, sales is often the part that is forgotten by people who found new companies, and they think it must sell like hell without any problem. And in practice, that is, of course, usually not true. And what resources do sales require? As I just said, it usually needs you in the beginning. And if you put the next, there's the question, what resources do sales require? I have another example. I was working last year in a company in Mexico, a small SME, and they had salespeople who were not, let's say, part of the company. They were just sales agents. And some of these sales agents, they regarded their sales task more as a hobby. So when they were interested in selling, then they did something, and when they had time, they did something. But the company was highly dependent on the results of these people. So when I was there, we changed that to a professional team, and we engaged people who were employed, and they got bonuses when they sold a lot. And when I finished the assignment, and 3 months later, we had increased the sales results by 60%, only by having different people and different ways of selling. So the recommendations at the end, Frank, weiter. You have to give, und noch eine, you have to give recommendations to the salespeople, and you have to start, oh, sorry. You think of who, nee, die nächste schon, it's okay. When you think of who is your customer, the segmentation of the customers is a very important part. Most of the companies have the, let's say, a segmentation. If they look at their businesses, 80% of their business comes from 20% of the customers. And that is something that you keep in mind, that if you have the right customers, you can make 80% of your turnover and of your profit with 20% of your customers. And when you think of how to segment your customers, you look at the economic criteria, you look at demographic and socioeconomic criteria like men or women, age, income, education, place of work, and so on. Or you look at psychological criteria. What kind of person, let's say, are you expecting as your customer? Are they hungry for success? Are they, let's say, independent, or are they employed somewhere? Are they self-marketing people, and so on? And if you look at social psychological criteria, in what class and in what prestige are they living? Are they mobile? Are they fixed in a certain place? Do they have a group role? And in the group, what is the dynamics in this group and the pressure in this group? And based on that, you have to put yourself on the chair of these customers and think of how would I react if I was this person? Would I buy this product with this information? Okay, talking about the next slide with how will you start the sale? Direct, indirect, online. If you sell direct, you do it with your own stuff. If you sell indirect, you do it with agents or representatives. And if you do it online, how do I build a customer base? It's not so easy just, let's say, being a competitor to Amazon and do the same as Amazon does it. There's a lot of background work that you need to do the same as Amazon or other online providers are doing. And the question comes again, what makes customers buy? And also a very important part, do I work in the B2B market? I mean, business to business, or the business to final customers market? So you have to create a marketing and sales process that makes buying easy for people, for all your customers, never mind who they are. You know, if you think how easy it is to buy something at Amazon, just with a few clicks, you buy your product and a few days later you have it at home. If you want to beat that, it's a lot of work, and it's a hell of work that you need to do. Now, thinking of the marketing strategy and of the success elements of a good marketing strategy, there are three important factors. That's the behavior, the attitude, and the technique. The behavior is your own discipline, your vitality, and your, let's say, guts to determine how quickly and consistently you will succeed. The perception and beliefs and outlook have a huge impact on your sales success, and the strategies and techniques and the personal presence while you execute your behaviors and your attitude determines how effective and how quick your sales team can work. Now, think of the cost for development when we think of prices. Think of your cost for development, for production, for sales and delivery. That's the basis. Then when you think of your business case and you determine a price, you have to consider what does it cost to come to that point. You determine a margin and a time frame to reach profitable business. And you think of what do you believe customers are willing to pay? Will they pay 10 euros? Will they pay 100 euros or whatever in between? And therefore you have to see what do other products cost, and you have to compare how can I come with similar prices into the market. So you start with a basic price and an offer that can be reduced, and you can increase additional service details or add service details, and then you can also increase your price later. When you think of pricing, you have to consider also the way you are selling. Is it over-the-counter pricing? Is it subscription pricing, like you know, for example, from mobile telephony or things like that? You have a subscription and you buy, let's say, regularly. Is it progressive pricing? Means the more I buy, the less I pay. Or is it degressive pricing? That's just the opposite. And you have to choose a model that fits to your product. And that is not always the same. And you have really to consider how would that work and how would I come up with my prices. Now, I have three ideas for products or for processes or ideas that could work in Jordan. I don't know the Jordan market that well, but it's just an idea. First of all, you could think of digitalization of processes in different industries. Let's say you find a certain industry and you look at how their process work. Remember, there was an example from Horst that other people were really developing a way how to help existing industries in improving their processes. And then I think if you have an idea on that, you could go into such an industry and help them to, let's say, improve a certain part of their process. If you only know how it works today, you can come to an idea how they could do it in the future. And when you think of new businesses, then you have to, of course, also consider, if I have a new business, how much does it disrupt an existing business? An example for that is Uber, for example. I guess you heard about Uber. That means where they combine transport services by private people. And of course, it's disrupting the taxi business, and it's totally disrupting that. And if you think of such a business model, you have to be aware that when you do this, you will have, of course, a lot of people being against your businesses. Think of, let's say, Airbnb, which is disrupting the hotel and apartment business all over the world. And the final idea, and that I think is something that should definitely be possible, Jordan could be a place for big data business, because I'm sure you have a lot of technology, well-developed and well-trained people, and you might be able to do big data business cheaper than in other countries. Because if you think of German wages and of German income, and you think of the Jordanian income, you can do with the same know-how, you can do things much cheaper than we could do it here in Germany. But for that, of course, you need a partner that will buy your big data service that you are going to develop. So that is the final slide. And I now would like to ask you if you have a certain question to one of the slides. As I said, you get all the slides later, and you can, of course, in between ask me questions by sending me an email or whatever you like to do. That shouldn't be a problem. And I wish you already now a lot of luck, that you will be able to answer the tasks that we will give you later.